So welcome, welcome, welcome everyone. Today we have the wonderful Sarah Liz King. I'm sure that everyone knows Sarah in the HA community. She's an amazing certified intuitive eating counselor. She's an exercise physiologist, a Pilates instructor, a health coach, and also she's an amazing podcaster. And if you haven't already binged on her podcast, just please stop this video and go and do so because it's just mind-blowing. Actually, Sarah, would you mind just reminding us what's the name of your podcast?
Yes. So thank you so much for that lovely introduction. The podcast name is Holistic Health Radio, and you can find it on iTunes or on Spotify.
Please, ladies, just write it down because Sarah, she is phenomenal. And she has her own history that she's going to share with us in a second. But first of all, I would like to ask you a question, Sarah. What's your favorite coffee? Because you asked this question too.
This is the question that I ask everybody.
Exactly.
So I typically get an almond flat white, but if they don't have the particular almond milk I really like, because I am a little bit fussy, because some people are like, oh, you make our own house-made almond milk, and I'm like, no, I want the one with like that's processed that I know tastes good. Then I'll usually get like a soy flat white or a chai instead, but almond flat white is my go-to.
And which one is the almond milk that you like?
Well, there's two now. It used to just be Milk Lab, but now there's like this brand called Alternative Dairy Co. that also does really good almond milk, but they're the two. They come in like a carton, and I kind of like look over the counter and see which one they have, and I'm like, yep, I'll have that one.
Milk Lab, I love it, but I've never heard about the second one.
Yeah, it's becoming more popular now. The cafe that I typically get my coffee from swapped, and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit less sweet. It's actually really nice.
Fantastic. So there we go. Now we know finally what's your favorite coffee. And Sarah, would you like to share a little bit of your story with us? So what brought you to this industry? Why you're working with women with hypothalamic amenorrhea? So what has been happening to you in the past 10 years or so?
So I am a pretty open book with my story, and I have my full story about my own hypothalamic amenorrhea journey on my podcast. It's episode 2. But essentially, I suffered from an eating disorder many, many years ago, and I went through a recovery process, as we all do, to kind of improve my mental health. And I reached the end, and my doctors were like, yep, you've reached your target weight, you're fine, we can discharge you. My relationship with food by that point was so much healthier. I'd broken a lot of my food rules. I felt really relaxed in my relationship with exercise. Like I didn't push myself at the gym like I used to. And I started doing different kinds of workouts that weren't just focused around pushing my body. So I did group fitness. I did fun things outdoors. I spent time with my friends, and I felt like I had my life back. But the only thing that I didn't have back was my period. And I always brought it up when I saw my doctor, and I was like, look, this doesn't seem normal. What's going on here? And the only answers that I ever got were, oh, you probably have polycystic ovarian syndrome, or let's put you on the pill that will give you a period. And it never really sat right with me. I was like, oh, like I'd learnt about PCOS when I was studying at uni, and I was like, I don't really think that I have this. And my doctors go, no, it's like lean PCOS. And I'm like, again, it didn't sit right with me. And then I remember one day I went to a talk, and it was actually a talk given by my gym. And there was this dietitian that came, and she had written a book, and she was sharing her story about how she had lost her period. And it was this condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea. And in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I have. Like, I am this person. This is how I feel like my body has been the past 10 years. And then I kind of ventured down the road of recovery. I actually ended up working with the dietitian who was at that talk. And
I'm sorry, Sarah, may I ask you, what's the name of that dietitian?
So the name of the dietitian that I worked with was Kate Callahan. Unfortunately, she passed away last year.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I had a hunch, and she was the same dietitian that I worked with to recover from hypothalamic amenorrhea, and
Yeah, she's
she
beautiful.
was something. She was
Yeah,
something.
she was just such a kind-hearted soul. And I learned so much about myself, not only in terms of like nutrition and like really nourishing my body again, but like just taking care of myself as a whole person. So when I dived into that, it was probably like 6 months of really like putting my heart and soul into recovery. And I was sitting with all of the uncomfortable feelings and the unknown that so many people struggle with. And then one day my period came back and I was like, oh my God, this actually works. So after that point, I gave myself a couple of years to just settle into a good rhythm with my body and myself. But I'd always been working with eating disorders in terms of exercise and helping people recover and heal their relationship with exercise. And I was always very, very careful about asking women about their hormones and not pushing them too far too soon to really help them get that recovery journey to the very end instead of kind of what I went through, which is like, oh, just assuming you're better because your relationship with food is fine, but your physical health kind of hasn't been pushed to the point where it needs to be for you to be healthy, for your bones to be protected, and for you to kind of like move on with your life completely. So those are the two areas that I worked in. And then it was probably like 2 years ago when I started my podcast. Oh, when did I start my
Two
podcast? So
years already.
I started my podcast, I want to say at the beginning of 2019. So it's been a while. And I could have gotten that number wrong, coming up to almost 100 episodes, which is phenomenal.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I started sharing about hypothalamic amenorrhea and opening up about my story because I felt ready to do so. And then at the same time, diving into the professional side of things. So I was lecturing at uni about eating disorders and exercise and low energy availability and RED-S. And within that, I also learned a whole lot more about hypothalamic amenorrhea, educating other exercise professionals about it. And my niche and kind of expertise grew from there.
Yeah.
Like you, I have like a very science mind. So that's where my passion began. And ever since then, I've been helping women recover their periods, have a better relationship with their body, exercise, food, because it is so interlinked.
Absolutely. And you work online, but you also have a clinic in Bondi, which is expanding at the moment. I saw from the social media that you've just hired a little
Yes.
helper.
Yes. So the clinic is actually fully online. We do not have like, I have my space, which is my house, but we
Right.
do all online programming for women that are recovering from disordered eating or eating disorders or hypothalamic amenorrhea. And Lucy, who is my new employee, has come on board to manage our program called Better Balance Training, which is all about empowering women to be educated around their menstrual cycle and exercise and make sure they make a really safe, fun, slow transition back into the workout world.
That's fantastic. So for all the ladies out there, you can always get in contact with Sarah Liz King if you need some help when it comes to ED, HA, exercise, so many abbreviations nowadays.
Yeah, I know, I know.
But all my ladies here that are listening to this video today, to this podcast, they want to know which is the best type of exercise in recovery, because apparently adding more food into the diet is not such a struggle, but giving up exercising, it's quite tough. And I know that there is a book which is called No Period Now What, and they talk about the all-in approach, which I didn't follow because it was, I don't know, it brought up too much anxiety for me. So what do you think about it? Did you still exercise while you were recovering? And what do you do with your clients?
Yeah. So it is very much like it's an individual approach. Some people really feel like they need to give their body that full amount of rest and are just ready to press pause on their workout routine and just do really gentle forms of movement. And I think in those circumstances, it's really important to give someone permission to rest and let them know that exercise will always be there for them when they're ready to get back to it. For other people, like you said, exercise was my life. I was a fitness professional at the time that I was recovering. I was on my feet. I was teaching Pilates, and I was someone that really enjoyed movement. So that approach of just giving up everything didn't really sit well with me. So the approach that I use myself, and it's also the approach that I help other women with, is the good, better, best approach. So when you think about your exercise, and obviously exercise being a form of stress on your body, we have to think about modifying it so that your body feels safe, because it doesn't know the difference between psychological stress, so like maybe your inbox exploding, or finances putting pressure on you, or like work being crazy busy. It doesn't know the difference between that and you doing like a hard, intense workout. So if you're someone that's doing really consistent movement and it is more high intensity, so like thinking of F45 or CrossFit or really heavy weight training, the good approach is to reduce it. So just start by reducing the volume a little bit. And sometimes that ease back is that first step. Now, the better approach is to kind of reduce your volume and reduce your intensity. So we're really dropping that intensity down to about a 4 or a 5 out of 10, as opposed to what most people are pushing, which is like 7, an 8, or a 9 out of 10 in terms of intensity. Because we know that if you do really high intensity exercise, your cortisol levels, they go really high. And if we have really high cortisol levels, it steals away from that sex hormone production, which is not what we want. So it's really about going like, how can we change your exercise routine so that you still feel like you're getting some mental health benefits from moving your body while not putting your body under stress? And that's going to look very different, because I work with athletes who, for instance, cannot give up their exercise routine, but it has to be adjusted in the short term to be a whole lot less. And then we're actually putting things into their routine like yoga and mindfulness, really telling them to slow down in terms of the reps that they're doing, so that it feels more like moving meditation than a really like hard going workout. And then your best approach, and this is for someone who really feels like their time frame is limited for their recovery, and they just really want to get their period back because maybe they're trying to conceive, or they've been told like their bone health is really at a crossroads, and if they don't do this, they need to consider medication or something else to really protect that or help them. And so they're like, right, this is kind of like that no going back moment. So the best approach is going really low level, low intensity, gentle, short duration movement. So 20 minutes of Pilates or yoga, some gentle walks, like the kind of pace that you would go if you were like walking with your nan, where it's
window
really
shopping,
mindful.
basically.
Yeah. Spending time outdoors doing things like going for a swim in the ocean or going for like a short hike in nature can be really good for your mental health, but don't have that overly taxing impact on your body. So that is the good, better, best approach, which is the kind of thing that I take. And it really is about talking to the person and meeting them where they're at, because some people aren't ready to dive into that all-in approach, like you said.
Yeah, sometimes can be very anxiety provoking. So I have 2 questions for you here. The first one is, what do you think about someone exercising while fasted? So for example, you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you go to a F45 class with just a coffee in your stomach. What do you think about that? Because it's so popular nowadays and intermittent fasting is everywhere. And we know that it's completely detrimental for hormonal health. But
Yeah.
what's your perspective on it?
So it's so interesting because the research on intermittent fasting is very, very new, obviously. Most of what we know has been done on rats or mice and also in men. And men, we know, are physiologically very, very different to women. So their hormones are pretty much like, you know, the shift in hormones they get, they kind of have over a 24-hour period and then they reset. So physiologically, hormonally, men are kind of the same every single day, whereas women experience this beautiful shift over like a 28 to 35 day period of their hormones, which does impact their physiology. Everything from our libido to our energy levels to our mood, how our body feels in terms of like getting PMS symptoms and all the rest of it. Now, our hormones and our bodies are really, really sensitive to fluctuations in energy and stress, much more so than men. So when we kind of wake up in the morning and we're throwing ourselves into like a high intensity workout with maybe just a coffee, the kind of biochemical shift that you have going on in your body is not good for hormones. You've got caffeine spiking your cortisol levels, and then you have a HIIT workout spiking your cortisol levels. And so your nervous system is like on fire. And then maybe after you finish your exercise, you're like, well, I'm not hungry, because exercise and cortisol can basically cause your body to go, okay, like we have energy stores, we'll release glycogen from our liver and from our muscles, which will then give us some energy. So it blunts our appetite. And then we don't eat for several hours. And as a result, our body goes, oh, well, even if we do get sustenance during the day, there's this huge portion of the day where we don't get anything. And that feels a bit unsafe. Yeah. We know, if you've read the No Period Now What book, that these micro deficits during the day actually cause us to delay our menstrual cycle returning, which is not ideal. So what we're trying to do is say like, hey, body, things are safe. I'm going to give you nutrition all the time. Yep. And I'm going to prevent you from having these thoughts, your hypothalamus, from kind of sensing what's going on, about things being unsafe, about there not being enough energy around, about being chased by tigers, AKA going to F45. So it's not a good combination, even for those who have a regular menstrual cycle. If you're focusing on performance and you're really focusing on performance, you will get a much better workout quality if you fuel your body before and after you work out. Because what you're doing is you're actually giving your body the nutrition that it needs to then do the work, as opposed to your body kind of going like, oh, hang on, like we do have some energy resources here that we can pull from, here that we can pull from, so we can do this work. So yes, it'll cover the cost of your workout, but then because it's already covered that, it doesn't have enough reserves to then go through and do all of those essential metabolic processes. So it downregulates them. And for some people, it's your period going missing, or it's your thyroid function being downregulated, or your digestion being off. All of those are clues, even if you don't lose your period, that your body isn't being fueled as well as it should be. So it's not a good mix. Always fuel before you work out.
So beautifully said. And it has also been shown that high level of cortisol suppresses the release of testosterone, oxytocin, and melatonin for up to 6 hours. And nowadays we are so surprised that so many women, they can't have babies naturally and they need the help and assistance of IVF. And we are also surprised that we don't have a sex drive, or that our partner doesn't have a sex drive. So let's steer away from cortisol as much as possible. So let's sleep in for an extra half an hour, have breakfast, and then maybe let's go for a walk next to the ocean. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think like a plan.
It just sounds like so much more enjoyable.
Nurturing.
And Yeah, nurturing. And look, if you want to do those higher intensity forms of movement, I really encourage you to work with a dietitian to learn about how to fuel your body, because so many people are nervous of carbohydrates, and you need carbohydrates to really get the most out of your workout.
Correct. And I have an Italian background, so I welcome the carbohydrates every single day of my life. Another question for you. What if a client comes to you and has an injury, but she still wants to train and she's suffering from hypothalamic amenorrhea? How would you treat that kind of situation? I don't
Yeah.
want to put you on the spot, but that's something that I keep on seeing. So
Yeah.
I was
Look, it's so common, and something that I definitely face and hear from clients who see me all the time. So it might not come up initially, but then in our consultation, I'll ask, oh, do you have any aches, pains, or injuries? And it could be something like, oh, I have this really niggling hip pain, or, you know, when I go to sleep at night, everything just feels really achy and uncomfortable, or a stress fracture, something that just hasn't healed properly, combined with that hypothalamic amenorrhea. And also this desire to keep training. So it's kind of about really peeling back the layers on this and explaining to them, like, okay, rehabbing an injury, that's one problem, right? And then fixing your hypothalamic amenorrhea, that's another problem that we need to solve, right? And then having a better relationship with food and exercise, that's something that we need to work on, right? So we need to work on all of these things and really explaining and asking them, like, well, what's most important to you right now? Really diving deep into their why, because sometimes the desire to keep exercising is from a place of fear. So a fear of losing everything that they've quote unquote worked so hard for in terms of their body or their fitness level, a fear of losing that identity of being someone who's a very fit individual, and the fear of what other people will think if they stop exercising.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. So it's managing all of these fears at the same time as going, like, you can still move your body, because what we need to do is really nurture and help that injury heal. But it's going to look very, very different for you right now. And what we need to focus on is some really helpful coping skills so that you can start to manage and know that you will be okay mentally with a different kind of exercise routine. And you don't always have to use your movement as reassurance of your self-worth, of always being the way that you manage stress. So we actually go, like, it's going to be different. It's going to be challenging. But the most important thing is that we have you in a really good whole state as a person when we reintroduce exercise when your period returns. So it is really tough, because I do have to set those like standards and boundaries of, like, I know this is what you want. If you want to work on really fixing these issues, we have to pull things back, peel back the layers, and really help you heal from the ground up. Because if we're like, just imagine a house, right? And you like see that there's a couple of cracks in the wall, and you just try and patch them up, but you realize that the foundation is actually the reason why that wall has cracked in the first place. You can keep patching up the wall as much as you like, but unless you fix the foundations of the house, it's going to keep cracking over and over again. And so that is really what this work is about. And yes, it's really difficult in the short term. In the long term, you can return to the exercise that you really love doing, and you'll also have less likelihood of injuring yourself, overreaching or overtraining. And then your bone health will be better as well when you know you have that estrogen in your body.
And this brings me to the last question. Do you have any tips that you can share with us on how to embrace rest? Because especially if you have an injury, maybe the best thing that you can do for the first couple of weeks, or even for the first couple of months, is to simply rest and enjoy the sun.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for us? That's a big one. Everyone is listening right now.
Yeah. Rest is really, really hard, right? Especially if you're this like type A, high achiever kind of personality. You're used to doing a lot and you're not used to just being with yourself. So when you start to think about resting, it can feel really overwhelming because you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all of my time? And so the first thing that I really recommend is thinking back to a time where you didn't discover exercise in this really full on way and think about all the things that you enjoy that weren't related to moving your body. Was it watching a TV show? Was it spending time with your friends? Was it baking? Was it reading a book? Was it sleeping in? All of those things that fell out of your life before exercise took up more of your kind of life pie chart. And start putting some of those back in. That would be my first one. My second one would start to be, most people start thinking about a rest day and they're like, oh my God, the only thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to like melt into the couch of laziness forever and I'm never going to want to move my body again. And to that, I say, that's very unlikely to happen. Because if I was to say to you, I want you to rest. And the only thing I want you to do is like get up, just eat your normal meals and snacks and like read a couple of books and laze around the house and play with your dog or watch a few movies. I want you to do that for a couple of days. And imagine yourself doing this for like 6 or 7 days. And the first few days, you're like, yes, I love this. This feels so good. My body just feels relaxed. By day like 7 or 8, you're probably going to be like, you know what? Kind of feel like going for a walk.
Yeah, ready to go out for coffee.
Yeah, but because you've never really mentally and physically allowed your body to rest, you've never allowed yourself to get to that point of having a moment of intuition where you're like, you know what? I actually feel like doing this just because I know it's going to be a nice break from the past few days. The hardest thing is that mentally giving yourself a break. Most people can physically let themselves rest, but mentally they give themselves a really, really hard time. And to that, I say, remember, rest is productive. Even when you are going to the gym, your rest days are essentially when your body gets stronger and it repairs and it replenishes everything that it needs to then go and let you do another movement session in the next couple of days. Failing to let yourself rest during that kind of day is the same as failing to let yourself rest during your hypothalamic amenorrhea stage. It's really about letting your body rest so that it has that energy available to rehabilitate all of those metabolic processes that have been downregulated. So in essence, reframing it to be like, this is an important workout, me staying home and doing nothing, to help my body heal. But in the short term, distracting yourself can be really helpful by planning some enjoyable activities.
And as women, we need a fertility void where we can be creative, where we can nurture our mental health and our soul instead of always being on the go. Because if you're always on the go, you really miss out on life. And you start on Monday, then you blink your eyes, and it's Sunday already, and you wonder, where is my week gone?
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing all these wonderful tips and all your wisdom with us. So for all the people that don't know you, which they're not going to be a lot, but where can we find you?
Yes. So I'm most active on social media, and you can find me at Sarah Liz King. My website is the same, sarahlizking.com. Or like I said, you can check out my podcast, which is Holistic Health Radio on iTunes or Spotify.
And make sure, girls, to do so because I love it and you're going to love it. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, and I talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Bye.